Quite the evening here at Who's Number One. The main event did not disappoint, although I don't think anybody quite predicted it to go as quickly as it did. Gordon, I want to get your thoughts. Of course, you were here Matt side to get the closest possible look at Craig's heel hook finish. Talk us through it, please.
Yeah, so I was basically coming on here to do some technical analysis, and I didn't get to do any of it because the matches were so fast. But Craig did a great job of getting to the far leg in half guard, and I know from experience when Craig locks his hands on the far leg from half guard, it's difficult to get your leg out of there.
You said he's sticky, right?
He's very sticky. All of his grips are very sticky, and you saw Panza actually try to explode away and kick his leg out. But once he got to that leg, it's hard to get Craig off of you once he gets to his prime positions. And they did a great job of. Panza actually exploded away, and he actually fell down. He would have been better off standing up, but as he went to go explode away, Craig put his hips on the floor and did a great job exposing his heel, and then ultimately, obviously, getting to the finish from across Ashigarami.
Beautiful sequence, something of a classic finishing attack, especially from your team, right? I mean, you guys have done such great work in popularizing this, and actually, this is Craig's third finish on Who's Number One with that very move, right?
Yeah, this is Craig. This is trademark Craig Jones. Half guard knee shield, get to the far leg, and use a low knee shield to invert into the far leg and get an entrance. So this is like prime Craig Jones territory here.
Gordon, you mentioned earlier that sometimes people look past Craig thinking, oh, he's the funny guy in the team. He's not such an easy match, right?
I don't know what it is. Everyone thinks oh, I had to fight Gordon, now I have to fight Craig. It's going to be an easy match. It's not going to be an easy match. Everyone looks at Craig like he's a finished product, but no one realizes that he's getting so much better in every match that he competes in. I see it every day, day to day, week to week, month to month. Craig's progression is off the charts. So for him to go out now is way different than him competing 6 months ago. That's why I like to see Craig go out and compete against a lot of the guys who he's come up short against. In matches 6 months or a year or 2 years ago. I like to see him getting those rematches because I'm very confident they can easily win those matches now.
Just we saw a little bit backstage there of some of your teammates from the infamous Death Squad. Clean sweep for you guys tonight.
4-0. I'm happy about it. So
let's talk a little bit about some of the other matches on the show tonight. Of course, we'll work our way down from the main event. I think, of course, we broke down Craig and Panza. Not a lot to talk about, but we did our best. But let's talk a little about the co-main event. Mikey Lucas, almost as quick as Craig.
Yes.
But we've decided to actually award Mikey Musumeci the Submission of the Night bonus, as brought to you by Fat Tire, because he had to maybe work a little bit harder for that one.
Yeah, I mean, and also when Craig hits a heel hook, you're like, okay, Craig hit a heel hook. But Mikey coming from someone who's primarily working in the gi and going out and showing that he's that diverse where he can adapt and he can go for, these leg locks that aren't legal in gi jiu-jitsu and weren't legal in IBJJF no-gi jiu-jitsu when he was winning no-gi worlds. I think it's a big statement. I think that it shows, Mikey's dedication to learning jiu-jitsu and progressing with the sport.
Were you able to identify some of the traits or characteristics of Mikey's technique? Did it remind you of anybody? Did you see something there that we've seen before in no-gi jiu-jitsu?
A lot of things that Mikey did today were actually very similar to a lot of the entrances that Lachlan hit on Kainan in 2019 ADCC. You saw a lot of outside De La Hiva, palm-to-palm grips with scoop grips on the leg, and then you saw him enter into what people refer to as K-guard, and then move into a backside 50-50, and then he was able to actually get a finish from there. So you saw a lot of outside De La Hiva into backside 50-50 entrances, and you saw Lachlan do try it multiple times on Kainan, and eventually he got into the position and finished him.
Yeah, a classic, a really clinical finish there for Mikey Musumeci. I mean, we expect nothing less from somebody as technical as Mikey, but I mean, it's a big question now. We'll have to see how things settle down with the rankings because, let's be honest, that Mikey came back and in only his second no-gi match since the time that he won the World No-gi Championships in 2016, he's now taken out the #1 ranked guy in that division. Surely it puts him at the top.
You can't really argue much otherwise, I believe. So the next question is, who's next for Mikey? I mean,
great question.
Who can challenge him? So I'm very excited to see where Mikey goes.
We do have some announcement for that coming up soon.
Oh,
we can't say too much right now, but just rest assured.
I say put him against more heavyweights. Everyone was pumped to see that.
That's true.
Well, everybody loves the Who's Number One format, and we enjoy testing things out here at Who's Number One as well. So we've got some events coming up soon that you'll be hearing about, and you already heard about the ADCC event in July. So we'll be announcing matches for that soon. But let's move on down through the show, because two ADCC veterans, two ADCC medalists, one of the, well, let's call it what it was, one of the most disappointing matches on Who's Number One, Wagner versus Josh Hinger.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I predicted in the beginning.
You called it.
But in the pre-show, I know both of those guys don't like to play on bottom. They're both primarily top players, and I know that they both respect each other's best moves. Wagner's a counter wrestler. When guys shoot on him, he goes Kimura.
Right.
And Josh is a counter wrestler. When guys shoot on him, he goes guillotine. So I was like, well, both guys are counter wrestlers, and both guys hate to be on bottom. So this could end up being just a wrestling match where they over-respect each other, and no one really gets to a position where one guy gets on top. And I thought that if one of the guys did get on top, they'd have a distinct advantage. So the other guys, they each made sure that they weren't going to end up on bottom, and it just turned into a wrestling match where not really much happened. Wagner had a few shots here, Josh had a few shots there, but not much action.
Just straight up canceled each other out, right?
Yeah, I don't think much more needs to be said about that match, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on Nicky Ryan's performance tonight. He took home the decision victory. I think he still wasn't in love with the performance, but maybe a move in the right direction, Gordon?
Yeah, this is a lot more interesting for me, because I personally know how good Nicky is in the gym, and the audience doesn't know that yet because they haven't seen it in competition.
I mean, this is what we keep hearing. We keep hearing that he's such a monster in the gym, and yet we have not seen anywhere near his full potential in the competition.
I think Nicky was less than 50% of what he is in the gym.
Wow.
I think this match was a lot closer to the Nicky Ryan you see in the gym than his last match with PJ. He was very dominant. He dominated the match, but he didn't get to a finish. But I personally believe that if Nicky trained in a 15-minute match with Gabriel in the gym, he would submit him multiple times. So I think this is closer to what I see in training every day, but I still think there's a ways to go before you see the true potential of Nicky Ryan.
What do you make of this scenario here where Nicky got the back twice in this match and lost that position? That's relatively unusual and something that I know high-level grapplers hate, is moving backwards, having to reset. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so I think Nicky did a great job of following the back when Gabriel turned away, but the one criticism I have is that Nicky didn't use the backhanded arm to keep Gabriel's body elongated, and this allowed Gabriel to sit up with concave shoulders and peel the feet off and then move away from Nicky and address the foot position. And when a guy sits up on you and is concave, you can't threaten to strangle, and he has direct access to your feet. So I think that Nicky needs to do a better job, needed to do a better job of elongating Gabriel, threatening a strangle, and using tension through the body, through the backhanded arm and the extension of the hips to keep him elongated so he couldn't access the feet.
Now, something that you've mentioned to me before in the past, and you've been, quite critical of him, not overly so, but just, realistically, you said that Nicky needs to compete more, that he just simply hasn't competed enough.
Yes.
What do you think, apart from the technical aspects, but do you think that he's on the right path with that performance tonight?
Yeah, I think it was much better than the PJ performance. I mean, you saw him dominate a guy who had a distinct experience and size advantage on him, an ADCC trials winner. And I think that's definitely a move in the right direction. This is the one criticism I've had with Nicky for the last 4 to 5 years is just compete more. I think he's starting to realize that now. And this is the exact position I didn't want him to end up in a situation where he has to learn how to compete when he's fighting the best guys in the world, and all eyes are on him. So I think he's getting better, but I think there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to see how that progresses, right? Because, he's still got so much more room to develop, only 19 years of age.
Of course. I mean, still, he's young, so he's got a bunch of time ahead of him, and I think that you're going to see the true Nicky Ryan. It's just a matter of time.
It's just tough because every single one of those mistakes is in the spotlight, right?
Yeah, of course. And he's got to live up. I mean, just by association, whenever he posts a picture, all of my haters just go on and attack him. Like he's got to try to fill my shoes. He's got to live up to what the team is doing. He got to go and submit people. So it's a lot of pressure for someone who's 19 to handle. But I think he's doing a great job with it, and I think that you're going to see what Nicky Ryan is. Like, this kid is the toughest training partner I have, and no one's going to believe me because they don't see it on the mat yet, but you will see it eventually.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the other matches on this evening. We had a couple of really standout submissions on the the undercard. But let's just work through. What stood out for you?
So I was really intrigued by Mika and Tackett, because what you normally see is Tackett push a pace that guys can't keep up with. But Mika did a really good job of shutting down disrupting the pace of Tackett. Whenever you start to see Tackett trying to build momentum, you see like a quick sweep from Mika, and then he passes him and he holds him in side control, and he kind of disrupted the pace of Tackett. I thought it was a great job by both guys. What I saw is they were pretty technically even. I saw maybe a slight advantage to Mika currently. What I saw I felt like Mika had a very distinct physical advantage.
Right.
It looked like a guy who was competing. Like it looked like Mika was like twice as strong as Tackett. I mean, you saw like the second he got a hold of him, it's like, okay, Tackett's like, okay, I cannot get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, Tackett weighed in yesterday at 168, fully clothed. He didn't cut any weight for this. He was well under the agreed weight of 172.5, and Mika cut. We heard somewhere in around 11 to 12 pounds to make the weight limit, and you said that weight
that matters.
It does matter.
That
You get a top position like that, it's hard to shift.
20,
right?
30 pounds matters. I mean, it doesn't matter what sport. If you're in a combat sport, 30 pounds, 20 pounds, 15 pounds, it matters. Despite jiu-jitsu saying for the weaker guy, the smaller guy to beat the bigger guy, size does matter.
I can't
really
confirm
does,
that
yeah.
fact. Yes.
Do you think he's the real deal?
Of course. I mean, I love to see these new guys coming out, and both guys went for the finish. That's what we like to see. There was action packed from start to finish, and I think both of these guys have a great future. I think that both Andrew and his brother are going to go on to achieve great things, and Mika's very young, and I think he's willing to learn, he's willing to adapt, and he's willing to progress with the sport. And he's been very dominant in the teenage years, and I think he's going to be very dominant in the adult years as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, obviously we were so impressed with Mika's performance, but let's give Andrew some credit as well, that he can go out of that holding his head high, right?
Absolutely. There were times where it seemed like Mika was maybe biding his time, but when he really turned it on, Andrew was able to get out of some tight spots. So a lot of credit to him as well. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we actually had a couple of submissions as well. Of course, Jessa Khan submitted Patty Fontes with an armbar, avenging that submission win from a couple of years ago. The rookie black belt making some serious waves in the 115-pound women's strawweight division. Cole Abate of AOJ managed to get a triangle armbar against Bird Wiltsey of the infamous Daisy Fresh, a.k.a. Pedigo submission fighting. Your teammate Damian Anson, a lightning-fast rear naked choke against Luis Quinones. But let's get your thoughts, though, on Taza versus Alves, because that was an interesting match in its own right, right?
That was very interesting. I believe Taza was a 4-1 underdog for that, because I don't know why. We had a very tough opponent from AOJ coming out, and he was he's been very successful in the gi. Hasn't done much no gi, but was killing it in the gi. And he came out, and Taza was pretty much on the attack the whole time. I think he got some pretty serious pops, both in the ankle and the knee. I saw his opponent walking backstage, and he was kind of limping, and he walked right backstage and sat down. So I think there was some pretty significant damage to the leg that he was attacking. I don't think he got a catastrophic break, but I definitely think he got some strong pops.
What did you make of this defense that Alves used throughout the match? Is that something that you can sit like that and that he'll look for a long time, or is he really playing a dangerous game there?
I think it was just more the lack of Taza's mechanics. I think that his hands were very low. You see a decent separation between his hands and his chin. His hands weren't low, but they weren't high. And his ashigarami wasn't what it was supposed to be. You saw in a lot of the heel hooks, Taza's top knee was pointing towards the ceiling and his legs were splayed open. And because he was belly down, he should be bringing both knees down to the floor and hips up. He was hips down with the top knee up. He should have been hips up with the top knee down. So the mechanics were they weren't quite there. Inside heel hooks just inherently are so strong that you can pop people and break people with very little force. But I think that he just needs to tighten up the mechanics, and if he tightens up the mechanics, he would have got a clean break, and he wouldn't have been able to use the leg anymore.
Man, Taza seemed genuinely dissatisfied with that performance, though. But hey, he took out a very tough black belt. It was a good performance. He got in on legs a number of times. But do you think that he deserves to be so hard on himself?
I think it's just the culture that we push as a team. I think that most people and most teams are just satisfied with doing the least amount possible to win. Like guys win by advantage and they go around beating their chest. Whereas we take the hardest approach possible. Like if we don't win by submission, we don't necessarily count that as a loss, but it's more like a failure. Like, you want to go out and you want to finish the guy. Like, a submission in our sport is the equivalent to a knockout in boxing or striking. So we want to go out and we want to take the hardest route possible, and we want to finish the guy. Because ultimately, that's what jiu-jitsu is. It's control that leads to submission. And that's what everyone wants to see. Nobody wants to see two guys come out and collar tie each other for the entire match. They want to see submissions. And even if you don't get a submission, people aren't upset about it. But as long as you're trying to get to a submission, that's what the fans want to see.
And John said it himself just yesterday on the Joe Rogan podcast that he believes that is not necessarily a technical solution. He doesn't necessarily believe that it's something that could be inspired by the rule set, but it's a cultural thing that needs to come from the teams themselves.
Of course. Coaching is going to build competitors. No matter what the rule set is. Like, if you watch a guy like DJ Jackson in an EBI rule set, he's going to do the same thing he does in an IBJJF rule set. If you watch a guy like Hodger Gracie, he's going to do the same thing in every rule set. He's going to go out and he's going to try to submit people. Nicholas Marigali, he's going to go out and he's going to try to submit people, no matter what the rule set. If you train to submit people, that's what you're going to showcase on the mat, in the competition mat. But if you train to just stall people out and you train tactics and you train positional stuff and whatnot, you're going to go out, and that's what you're going to do. So whatever you train, however the culture is built in the training room, is what you're going to showcase when you go out to compete.
So, of course, you were sure you're disappointed that you were unable to compete here tonight at Who's Number One. But how did you feel? How do you feel sitting mat side for once and just watching the action? And what did you think of tonight's show?
So there's two sides to this coin. A part of me, a large part of me, probably the largest part, is very disappointed. I love, whenever I go to competitions and I'm not competing, I'm like, man, I really should be out there. So knowing that I should have been out there and I can't just because my stomach is messed up is very saddening and disappointing on one side. But on the other side, this is like the first time that I've traveled to Texas and like not had to worry about competing. It's kind of like not a vacation, but it's like you get here and usually I'm just doing interviews and press stuff, and then I'm competing and I go home. Whereas now I got to kind of like chill out a little bit, talk to the guys, and it's a lot less stressful when you have to show up when you don't have to show up to compete. So part of me, the biggest part of me is very sad that I couldn't compete. I want to compete. I love competing, and it's something that I want to do for the next 10 to 15 years, provided I'm healthy. But on the same side, on the flip side of it, it's kind of relaxing to have to show up and just chill. Like there's no stress of, okay, I have to go out in the main event and there's gonna be hundreds of thousands of people watching at home. So it's saddening, but also it's kind of relieving to get here and not have to compete.
Well, I guess the final question that we have to ask really is just, the announcement, of course, that you'll be taking an indefinite leave from competition to address the issues that you currently have. But is this permanent? Will we see Gordon Ryan back?
I mean, I've had these stomach issues for going on 3 years now. Ideally, provided my body's healthy, I would like to compete until 40 years old. So 15 years is a long time. I've had the stomach issues for 3 years. I hope that in the next 15 years I can figure out something to kind of get me back to a manageable situation where I can go out to compete. If I can't, then I can't. Then I'm just going to focus on coaching and doing what I can to help my teammates continue what they do. But the ultimate goal, obviously, is to get back out and compete as much as I can for as long as I can, up until about 35, 40 years old when I peak as an athlete. But I'm still training. I'm still doing all the things I would normally do, all the things I would if I was competing. It's not up to the level that I'm satisfied with my stomach right now. So I decided to not compete for a while and then focus on getting my stomach back, because if I'm in camps every month, every 2 months, it's hard to travel around the country to visit doctors and do this and do that. So I'm just focusing on that, scheduling appointments, trying to get this in order, and then once I can deal with that, then I'll be in a situation where hopefully I can come back out and compete.
Indefinite, not permanent.
Hopefully not permanent.
Let's hope that you do manage to find a solution to your issues, and because we certainly would love to see you back on the mats as soon as possible.
Of course.
100%, Gordon. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you, guys.
And maybe we'll get you another commentary spot next time. We'll
Hopefully,
see.
I'll be able to do some work next time.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. We hope that you enjoyed everything to offer here at Who's Number One. A fantastic main event, some fantastic finishes, no less than 5 submissions in 9 matches on tonight's show. A little bit of everything. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you back here on the next one. Until next time.